Hey guys, Warren P here. Welcome back to Finance for Firefighters. Today we're going to talk about mindset as a couple. One of the biggest contention points you have in a lot of relationships that leads to divorce. They say like sex, politics, religion, things like that. But money is definitely one of the top things that causes friction and can lead to divorce in marriages and couples, right? So let's talk about some basic things as far as finances go for that. The first thing I'd say is honesty is the biggest piece of this, and being on the same page is the next biggest piece of this. So, depending on your particular situation as a couple, maybe your wife's a spender, maybe you're a spender, maybe you're both spenders, maybe you're both frugal. Whatever conflicts of each one. But the main thing is to be able to find out what you folks are about and find your best way of dealing with all that kind of stuff. So first thing you need to do is basically discuss and determine your net worth. So if you look over at episode 3, I think I discussed most of those ways of doing that. So in that particular one, just zoom over that, look at that, calculate that thing together. Okay? Right now, we're going to zoom over to discussing assets and liabilities, and then that way you can kind of have a quick review of that, so we can look at what the net worth piece is. Okay, assets are things like cash, savings and checking account balances, brokerage accounts, home equity that you have, retirement accounts, which include 457, 401ks, 401as, 403bs, IRAs, Roth IRAs, things like that. It also includes precious metals and jewelry, and then any autos or other things that you have that are paid off. Those all include all of your assets. The next thing you have are liabilities. So liabilities are things like your mortgage loan, auto loans, credit card debt, school loans, personal loan debt. And your net worth is basically quantified by taking all of your assets and subtracting all your liabilities and find out what the total amount is. You may have a positive net worth. You may have more liabilities than assets, and you'd have a negative net worth. The next piece is looking at your individual spending habits. Okay, so best way to do this is to track all of your expenses for the past 3 months and find out, what you folks are spending money on. You have different apps that you can do to be able to track all this stuff directly to your credit cards and stuff like that, or you can just go pen to paper and get all that stuff written down, and then that way you see which one of you is spending more on food or different other things, all the apps that you have on your phones, all that kind of stuff. Track all that stuff and find out the different spending habits that you each have. Maybe one of you eats out more or has coffee more or meets up with friends more or whatever. Find out what all that stuff is so you can dial down exactly what you're spending money on. After this, making a list of financial goals would be one of the next best things you have. So you determine where you are at financially with your wife or your spouse, what you want to be doing moving forward, what your expenses are, all that kind of stuff. Determine those financial goals and write those ones down. Again, episode 4, I believe. Yep, episode 4. We'll discuss setting up financial goals for whatever they are. So if it's paying off debt, or if it's buying a house, or if it's buying a second property, whatever that is should be some of your financial goals that you set up. So if you look over at episode 4, I get into more details about that stuff. Automation is one of the best ways to really budget and save your money. Really, if you automate things, you're much less likely, for one, to miss bills and damage or ruin your credit, and it's also a much easier way to save money. So most of the things that my wife and I do as far as savings and investments and stuff goes, all of it's automated. I'm not having to think about it. I'm actually a pretty absent-minded guy, so when I automate things, I don't have to worry about them getting done. So you can set that up either through your checking account or through a credit card if you put bills on that, and then you make them automatically transferred over or automatically paid for the savings account piece of it or for all of your normal monthly bills. Okay, so we've already discussed some of the basic things leading up to some of these things. So let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of how you can manage your the right kind of mindset you have and how to manage your funds with your spouse. Okay, so we'll zoom over here and we'll look at the 3 different ways that are effective at managing finances. One way you can manage finances with the spouse is through using separate accounts. In separate accounts, you basically keep your own money in your own separate accounts, and then you split all of your expenses equally or proportionally based on your income. So you can bring all the bills in, pay them from each account. You can put everything on a credit card, which is easier, like a joint credit card you have together, and then pay your half or your portion of it based on the proportion of the income. And that's basically how you do it. Everything else is managed separately. The advantages of this are you can take care of your own account, your own habits, pay off your own debt, spend what you want, all that kind of stuff. But and you may actually be less likely to argue over spending habits, especially if one of you is more of a spender than the other one. The negative side of this is it can be a lot more burdensome to track everything, and then to, hash everything out at the end of each month. Another way to manage accounts as a couple would be using joint accounts. So this is pretty common in this method. Both spouses or both parts of the couple put everything into a joint account, and then everything is paid from there. So both of your paychecks go into that same account. Everything is paid from that joint account. And it's managed in one place. So an advantage of this is everything's easier to track. Income levels doesn't matter. All the other differences that you have doesn't matter. It's easier to track, and it's easier to change it as family changes. So if you have more bills or more expenses, or if you free up debt or any of those other kinds of things, and you're able to put more towards either paying off debt, or you're able to invest or save more, or you have more bills that come up, you're able to just make adjustments because all of your income is going into one place. The negative side of using a joint account is that different spending habits or different income levels can lead to resentment. Okay, a third way of managing finances as a couple is using a combination accounts method. And this is basically a combination of separate and joint accounts. And it's pretty flexible in how you decide to do it. But one way is basically to have all income going into a joint account that you have together that pays all the bills. And then from there, there's transfers out to each separate account. So all of the income goes into the joint account, and then from there it's split off into your separate accounts for your own spending money. The advantages of this are all bills, debt, savings, retirement, everything like that is jointly managed in the one main account. And then the separate accounts allow you to have your own kind of spending money where you're judgment free, you're not worried about it, you can spend it on what you want. The downside about this one is there's multiple accounts you have to manage with statements and tracking, make sure that there's no fraud, all that kind of stuff. So now we'll get into an example of how my wife and I manage our finances. We have two separate banks that we use. We use Wells Fargo and we use Bank of America. Wells Fargo, we have two different accounts. The first is a checking, the second is a savings account. For the checking account, this pays the mortgage, it pays our HOA fees, and it pays our property taxes. Those are like the big bills that pile up that we don't have to worry about paying. There's also a savings account attached to it. In this one, the savings account, since we don't use this account as much, it's more of automated payments for all these bills through the checking account. Our emergency fund is housed here in that savings account, which is tied to the checking, obviously. And then there's also an auto transfer from the savings account to our brokerage account where we buy investments and we build up more long-term savings is what I call it through the brokerage account. So what we do basically every pay period is that we have the first amount of my check that covers the cost of the mortgage, the HOA, property taxes, and the auto transfer to the savings account and the auto transfer from there to the brokerage is a set fixed amount every month. So by doing this, my mortgage is always covered, the HOA is always paid, property taxes are covered because we pay those twice a year and they're large amounts. And then it also covers our auto transfer to our brokerage. So because there's a fixed amount that goes in there every paycheck into Wells Fargo, covering all of those bills that we have, I don't even have to worry about paying them. They're already taken care of. It's automatically done. The second bank we use, and this is the one we use primarily for the majority of our monthly expenses, is through Bank of America. Through Bank of America, I have a checking account, savings account number 1, savings account number 2, and savings account number 3. Let's talk through each one. In the checking account, I basically, the first portion of my check goes to Wells Fargo and the remaining balance goes to Bank of America. The remaining balance that we've split up that goes into the checking account will pay our life insurance costs, internet, utilities, phone, fuel, groceries, and then that includes eating out or other incidental things like going to Target, whatever. And then there's automatic transfer set up to savings account number 1, savings account number 2, and savings account number 3. So my paycheck, the remaining balance of my paycheck after Wells Fargo has been taken out, goes into this checking account, into Bank of America. All of those individual bills I just listed above that are listed under checking here are accounted for through the remainder of that paycheck. But the majority of those bills were paid on our credit card. We make everything on the credit card. It's easier to track, and we know what we spent on that. So
the balance that I keep in there, I think I keep an extra $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month usually is the remaining balance in the checking account. After every, for my wife and I, we do it after every pay period. We pay off the entire credit card balance, which covers all of those bills. Let's look now at savings account number one. In savings account number one, which has an automatic transfer from the checking account the same day that it's put in there from my paycheck, the savings account number one is designed to cover home insurance and homeowners insurance and then auto insurance. So those are also two very large ticket items, particularly in California. Those keep increasing. I don't want to have to worry about paying those bills that come up once or twice a year. So the money's already accounted for, split up monthly, and put into those accounts automatically. Savings account number two is set up as a spending account. So we have a small amount that transfers over there so my wife and I can purchase things we want. If I want to get a mountain bike or if she wants to, you know, um, go out to a spa thing with her friends or whatever, it comes out of that particular account. We don't have to worry about budgeting for it because it's already budgeted for here. The third account is savings account number three. This one is a short-term savings. So when we have different, larger projects we want to do on the house, anything that's going to be done in the next 3, 5 years, something like that, the short-term savings is where the excess money that I get from overtime or excess that we're saving by reducing some of our expenses. Let's say we're eating out less, or we've had less bills during that particular month. Extra money, my wife will transfer extra money into that savings account number three for the short-term savings. So this could go towards anything like, hey, we need to buy a vehicle, or we want to put a pool in, or we're going to do any kind of home renovations and things like that in the next short-term period, the next less than 5 years. So, as a recap, for my paycheck distribution, the first portion of my check goes to Wells Fargo. This is a fixed amount. It covers HOA, property taxes, mortgage, and it includes the savings account part of it. So, I'm already paying myself first. From that savings in the Wells Fargo, it automatically transfers to a brokerage account and we invest it through that. In Bank of America, this gets the remaining balance of my paycheck. So, when this goes into that checking account under Bank of America, the credit card gets paid off, and then any excess money from either, you know, reduced expenses that we had for that month or overtime or anything else like that gets transferred to that savings account number three, that short-term savings account. And in this one, by sticking with this particular um, way of doing things that we've done, we've been able to save pretty significant portions of money pretty quickly by just having everything budgeted for, and then anything above a certain amount gets transferred over into that savings account number three.
Okay, guys. Hopefully this episode was educational for you. If there's any other pieces questions you had based on what I said, or any things that weren't clear to you, or you liked any of this material that I'm putting out there for you, leave some comments for anything you have feedback on, and give me a thumbs up if you're liking what I'm doing. I'll keep knocking these things out. Okay. I appreciate you guys' time. I'll see you on the next one.